We have another case of a Twitter artist who has a Patreon being accused of using AI. So this is posted on Twitter by Twitter user Rivix, who goes by the handle Tenshi no Ryu, if I'm reading that correctly. They write, "I'm tiny, so this might not reach people, but heads up. Mashiro underscore www is posting AI commissions and blocking anyone who calls that out in the replies. Please share so the artists and commissioners know and stay safe." Again, I say this a bajillion times. Disclaimer, please don't send hate to any parties involved, and don't hate on the commissioners because these are people who very likely did not know that this was AI and unfortunately were scammed. So this is their Twitter page, and the pinned tweet says, "Opening up commissions for September. Full body is $230, half body is $320, deadline is 1 month, plus 30% for NSFW work." This tweet has now been unpinned, but it's a bit suspicious to me. Maybe it's a typo, but full body, if you don't know, is the full person from head to toe, and half body is the top of the head down to like, I don't know, half of their body, maybe like their hips, maybe like upper thighs. Because you draw more parts of the body for a full body, the full body is almost always going to be more expensive than the half body due to it being more work, but this could be a typo. So here are some examples of their artwork that according to Rivix looks suspicious, and one is the ribbonage of the dress here, because as you can see, we've got crisscrossing ribbons, and then on the bottom part of the ribbon, there's 2 ribbons now connecting into the bow instead of 1. Also, the second ribbon looks very flesh colored instead of the proper ribbon color, which is a much more grayish beige. And then here at the bottom of the right side of the bow, it looks like there is another ribbon connecting into it, which shouldn't exist. And at the bottom part of the bow, there's only 1 ribbon visible. There should be 2 because there's 2 ends. Other parts that just look a little bit odd is the kind of warping that's happening over here in the clothing wrinkle detailing, and more warping that's happening here in the wrinkles. Like there's kind of this like double cut line here that just doesn't make sense. Could be human error, benefit of doubt, but it's a bit suspicious. Now we have the hair, where it's coming out, going back in, coming out, going back in. A lot of artists do this for design choice, but typically they get the angles a little more realistic looking than this. We also have this detailing on the dress where it kind of looks like a seam that wasn't ironed out properly and has like some wrinkling effect happening here. And the button, which look at the cracks in the clothing to fit the button in. This is just odd. And I feel like human artists wouldn't make the artistic choice to add all of these like holes around where the buttons are. Like they don't look like buttonholes. They literally look like clothing holes. Rivix adds, "Adding screenshots for proof. Just want to look out for artists, VTubers, and anyone commissioning art. They've been blocking people who call it out, so please share to keep others safe, since quite a few big artists I know follow this person." Here we have another aspect where the hair is melting into the arm. This is chest detailing, and it's doing the whole suspicious gold details where from afar, the details look like they make sense. And then you look closer and what is actually happening with this chest button piece. Not to mention none of the buttons are circular, which is fine. There's ornamental buttons that are different shapes, but none of the buttons are also the same shape either. And the ribbon doesn't connect to anything. There's a ribbon here and there's a bow here and there's a slight gap. Here we have more of the hair that's happening again, where the hair is really thin and then it gets really, really thick and connects to other parts of the hair. And then strands of hair that are coming out the wrong way, because if the movement of the hair is going, left to right, you wouldn't really have a wayward strand of hair coming out this way for this type of hair texture where it's almost very, very straight but a bit fluffy. And then you also have this screenshot. So I do think the shape of the hand, you could argue it would make sense if you're curling your fist for that finger to be visible, but the rendering of this hand looks a lot different in quality compared to their other pieces. More close-ups, and this is something. Hair with a lot of detail, and then you look closely at the detail and it's looping in, out, in, out, in, out. More kind of crunchiness going on with the bangs up here. More close-ups of the hair, and the clothing wrinkling here is a bit interesting. Like some of the wrinkles are kind of falling into the hair curls here. This one is interesting. We've got a triangle in the hair, in the hair strands. Close-up of a hand here, and more close-ups. So here we have some wrinkling in the armpit, and oh, this is interesting. This hair is pretty egregious. The amount of looping, circling that's happening here. This kind of looks like how you draw like a whirlpool or something. Again, with the spider webbing in the hair, where it's like strands looping in, out. Again, I want to add, this is an artistic choice. A lot of artists will do this with the hair looping, stuff like that, but it will have some sort of direction, like because a human is drawing it, it goes from one way to another, it flows, but artistically kind of separates for more volume and more detail. But this is what my yarn looks like when it gets tangled up. And then we have these like shaky, really, really thin strands of hair that kind of look like porcelain cracks in the neck of the character. And then here's a thin strand of hair that like thickens and connects back into this bigger chunk of hair. And the hands that's curled with a fleshy part visible here for some reason. And another fleshy part visible here, which should not be at all with where the knuckles are placed. So Rivix adds, Mashiro flat out said they won't show proof unless you pay. Any honest artist would have no excuse sharing a time-lapse. Saying it's unfair to patrons is a weak excuse. One time-lapse doesn't take away from them, it just proves the work is real. Hiding behind that is just suspicious. So a commenter said, for that kind of pricing, again, they charge in the hundreds for commissions, you wouldn't mind showing a time-lapse of you actually drawing one of these, right? I mean, with all the AI slop out there, I just want to be sure that's not what I'm getting. Mashiro says, of course, I don't mind. When people order art from me, they first get a sketch, make edits if necessary, then a version with flat colors, and only then the finished art. But if you need a speed paint, then I charge an additional 20% to the price. And the commenter says, I'm asking for you to post a time-lapse video so I could feel comfortable spending my money. I don't plan on paying you for one, especially not 20% more. That's wild. Mashiro says, in that case, no. Heart. I have high skill, so I don't consider my prices high, and I don't force you to order. Publishing a speed paint for free would be unfair to the people who pay for my Patreon. Have a nice day. I find that note a bit interesting for their Patreon because on one hand, I understand artists like gatekeeping things behind a Patreon to make money, right? I want artists to make money, but their Patreon has only one tier and the tier says, thank you very much. High-res photos, access to sketches and work in progresses, access to polls, alternate versions of my illustrations, which can include NSFW and other, things. There's no mention of a time lapse. Maybe the work in progress is supposed to be the time lapse, and that is like what is gate kept behind the Patreon. But it just kind of seemed like the Patreon is what gives you NSFW access. It doesn't sound like it would take away from people who are paying for it. And I do completely agree with what Rivik said. There are suspicions of AI going around nowadays with the rise of Gen AI. So for customer reassurance, I don't think posting a couple speed paints would hurt your business. Honestly, from a business standpoint, it would probably drive more business because with those speed paints with elements that could prove you're legitimate, then people who are on the fence about working with you would be sold to go purchase the Patreon or to purchase a commission because they can trust they're getting legitimate work. Another commenter, Jen P or Tilted Halo adds, there are definitely major inconsistencies with the art in both quality and style, despite most pieces being in a similar vein. There are clear signs of AI use and other signs of tracing over an image in multiple areas of said image. So here we have more laces, and these ones are also quite egregious. Because once again, we have the laces crisscrossing, 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 crisscrossing. Oh, where did this extra ribbon come from out of nowhere? We have a bow with a bunch of lines in the second bow for some reason. And look at the eyelets. We have ribbons melting into eyelets, more ribbons melting into eyelets. People make human errors, that's so true, but I would assume a human artist would draw the ribbon going into the eyelet and not melting into the metal piecing. And then we have this, which is just funny to me because it is what looks to be like a strap with a buckle, and the buckle looks to be very sloppily drawn over the strap. Or actually, this could be a belt. Also funny because we have a girl with like pink pigtails, and there's this like crisscrossing strap detail in the pigtails. And here you can see the white ribbon is like once again melting into hair strands. And then there is a bikini top that they're wearing, except one side has one strap leading into the bikini triangle and the other side has two. And then we have like cross hatching straight over the face. This could be maybe like a character design, but the cross hatching isn't even. Like there's all these gaps, holes, and then there's stripes that like overlap basically over other cross hatching. Again, same with the hair where like things are overlapping into each other. If you go to their Twitter page and you go down their artworks, there's suspicious elements in most of them. So sorry, a lot's gonna have to get censored out due to the fact they are an NSFW artist. But here we have one of their pieces and there's a lot of funky things happening. The irises aren't drawn evenly and the irises aren't fully circular either. This is kind of like warping to the side here. Here, the iris is like disconnected. And then the whites in the eyes are all completely different sizes, which, it could be an artistic choice, but it's an interesting artistic choice. And then you look even closer at the eyes and the eyelids are uneven. Drastically so, actually. One has like a monolid and the other eye has like a very prominent double eyelid. And then you look at the eyelashes and this eyelash is like a one big brushstroke that like intersects into the pupil of the eye. And here's another eyelash that connects into the hair strand and into the white of the eye somehow. And these eyelashes are all jumbled all over the place. And then we scroll down a little bit. And then we see the character is basically wearing some sort of like strappage, like a leather strapping on their upper body with like a metal ring in the middle. And the strapping detail doesn't make sense first off because it doesn't match, right? It's supposed to be this crisscross detailing, and the way the straps attach to the ring on the right is completely different from how it attaches on the left. And then we have the collar melting into the strap, and then the metal ring has this like tiny little thing, this tiny little mistake of a line that connects to the collar. Interesting. The character also has these like leather strappy gloves on, and if you take a look at the leather strappy gloves, one of them has a buckle, and then the second one looks like it was supposed to have a buckle with like some gap detailing on the bottom, and there's just no buckle here. And also the clothing is not symmetrical. It's kind of like a bodysuit tucked into these like leather, really tiny like underwear, but there's like a side strap here on the right that isn't present on the left. And again, asymmetry doesn't mean that it's AI, but I just find asymmetry interesting because it doesn't look like it's asymmetry done for a design choice, but because AI made it asymmetrical. And then same thing with the bodysuit here. There's like what looks like a sheer paneling on the right that is behind the arm. And on the left side, there's just a fleshy gap here. So is there like a cutout? Is it not a cutout? But it's not different enough to make it asymmetrical. This is the same piece with the ribbon detailing on the dress that was uneven, but again, a little bit of a closer look for the face. Once again, we have the really uneven eyelids again. And again, there are people with double eyelids, triple eyelids, uneven eyelids. When I rub my eyes too hard, I get a triple eyelid. But you often don't see artists draw this on their pieces. And then again, we have the bangs that are connecting and melting into the eyes, right? Here's this like bang strand kind of connecting into the eye. And this isn't like a, oh, the bangs are covering the eyes. It looks like it's melting into the eye. And then we have this piece, which she has like side bangs. And then the side bang is melting into the face. And on this side, the shadows don't add up with the bangs at all. Because here, the side bang kind of has 2 points, and there's the 2 points here, and there's a third one, which is for this hair strand, I guess, but it's so high up. This one would cast a shadow on the cheek, not the chest. And then there is, on the right side, another shadow for side bangs that don't exist because it's blowing away in the wind. And there's like a forgotten brushstroke here. Could be human error, but it's just kind of interesting. I also find it interesting the eyeliner goes over the hands that's in front of the face. Next, we have this piece, once again with the uneven eyelids. She has a double eyelid on the left eye, like 2 eyelids, and then there's just a single double eyelid on the right eye. This is the girl with the ribbon detailing in her hair. But other oddities in this piece, once again, the hair. We have hair looping out, back in, out, back in. The left pigtail is very prominent in this looping detailing here. We have the ribbon not fully go around the braid. There's all this like zigzagging triangular detailing happening over here. In the back piece of her hair, there's this like really stringy hair strands that are connecting into nothing. This is connecting into the braid. That's interesting. That would only happen if you like did your hair wrong. And then we have like other parts looping over the shoulder. And then this part of the rendering is just one thing to point out. This doesn't mean that you use AI. We're just looking at everything in conjunction. So given the fact that there's all these other oddities with the piece, but you can see this kind of like detailing here. In the dress rendering, there's this like crisscrossing detailing. It kind of looks like AI was trying to make some like ribbonage, and then it just ended up looking like this. And over here with the back hair piece again, we have one really prominent example of the hair looping all the way down and then back into what exactly? Like it widens and connects into nothing. This is one other thing a commenter pointed out that I just thought was funny. A lot of artists will hide limbs if they can get away with it, you know. Drawing hands are difficult as it is. And then to draw multiple hands, you know, right hand, left hand, it's tiring. So if you could sneak, you know, a hand in a pocket or a hand behind the body, tons of artists do that. This artist just does it a lot. And it's interesting because the posing, it makes it look a bit awkward in the poses they have their characters drawn in. Like here we get a side angle of this character, and where is the right arm exactly? Like, is the arm held all the way to the side? You know, if she bent her arm, you know, you would still see like a forearm here or something like that. But it's just completely just gone. It's just shoulder. I don't know, maybe she's like holding her thigh or something. I don't know. Here's another example. We have a side pose and the left arm is just gone. And the posing is just very awkward because we have like a left scapula here, like jutting upwards, and then the arm is missing, not bent, whatever. And then again, I feel like in order to hide this arm against your body in this pose, you would see something, either a hand or like the elbow, another piece where the hand is completely missing, another pose where the arm is completely gone. With the position the shoulder is in right here, there's no way to secretly hide the arm behind the body like this. Like with where the shoulder is going, you would have like a hand out like this or like this or something. It's just gone. And another Twitter user made a little graphic putting together information about Mashiro. This is Teru Pancake or Teru writing. In yet another case of AI scams, Mashiro is taking commissions and denying they use AI. I don't think this requires a whole doc since it's pretty obvious if you zoom in on anything in their gallery. Please be well informed when you plan to commission artists with new accounts. And that is the other aspect that makes Mashiro suspicious. Their account joined Twitter April 2025. And according to this graphic, there are no social media accounts associated with the username Mashiro_www or similar outside of Twitter. The account doesn't link to other sites. It is very rare for somebody to show up one day with this apparent skill level and no previous following, or at least other art friends. And for me to add, older examples of their artwork. Look, there are cases where an artist worked in private, and then once they're satisfied with the quality of their work, they start posting it on social media, and then, they post a little bit of their backlog, whatever. They typically would have social media platforms elsewhere, maybe a DeviantArt, maybe an Instagram, etc. Or at least like older examples of their art to show like, hey, here's my art from a couple years ago. So this is their commission sheet. And then again, charging people. The note adds, note how characters are never in their official clothes. Only gym clothes, bunny suits, swimsuits. This is one thing to take note of. It's always just a little suspicious. Nothing wrong with drawing your favorite characters in like different daily outfits, but AI is obviously bad at generating very complex outfits that are key to what the character wears. This is why you often see those accounts who do like the Genshin fan art, who have a Patreon, who generates AI works and then doesn't disclose it and slightly paints it over. Those characters are never in their actual Genshin outfits, and they're always in like a white linen shirt or like a daily outfit because AI will butcher it so bad that they would be instantly clocked. The image adds, the first artworks in their account are traced from AI, but now they just clean up AI generated images. So here is a comment from Mashiro on September 16th that was allegedly deleted. A commenter said, can you post a video process so we know we're not being scammed with AI? And Mashiro says, I can. I'll do it within a week. This one is again always a bit suspicious because, of course, sometimes when people get called out, you have real life things to tend to, so you cannot in that moment deal with the situation and like drop everything and make a time lapse. But most of the time people like scramble essentially to try to find a time lapse or whatever to clear your name. It's typically always the AI users that drag their feet and take their sweet time with posting the evidence to clear their name. Another tweet from Mashiro writing, if you're not joking, then thank you so much. Support is very important to me. I have nothing to be afraid of. I would gladly record a speed paint for those who really admire me and continue to believe in me. So we have an update on the Mashiro piece, which is why I look a little different because they posted a speed paint. So on September 20th, Mashiro makes this post writing, we're a speed paint for my subscribers who still believe and support me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So let's take a look at the speed paint. This is their speed paints so far. And in the speed paint, they kind of do like a couple sketches where they block out the piece and kind of how they want it to look like before they decide to change the canvas orientation entirely and work on another piece. So, or that's the piece that you see. Their art process is a bit interesting. And now again, look, every time I say this, every time I point things out, if you do this doesn't mean you used AI. In context with everything else, given the fact they have clothes with like too many ribbons or like not enough strings hanging from the ribbons or like hair looping in and out and all of this other stuff. Their process is interesting is that they do the sketch and then they line only the face and they start coloring. Nothing else is lined in yet, right? So they line in only the face and part of like the right side of the bangs and immediately go into coloring the face, the eyes, etc. They put the blush, then they do the liner for another chunk of hair and then go back into shading the face. Like some artists do that, you go back and forth, you start like doing the liner, you get a little bored, you're like, let me sample a little other thing and try rendering the face for a little bit and then go back and forth. It's just not common typically what you will see with people. Mashiro adds, the reason why many of my artworks look strange when zoomed in is the 16K image upscaling sites that I use them on. Here is a before and after example. I hadn't noticed it before because the art looked visually appealing. So this is the side-by-side where one, you have an art piece and then two, this I guess is the upscaled version of the artwork. In the upscaled version, the texturing swirly brush they use is now flattened out in the upscaled version. And here there's some warping. So the eye kind of warped in a little bit. The bangs are now like melting into the eye. And the eyelid is now warping. So here's another piece they've made. I find that a little bit hard to believe, to be honest, for the reason that like if they are using this like 16K upscaler for their art, right? And this on the right is the upscaled version, then the swirly texture stamp brushes aren't visible anymore on the upscaled version. It gets like smoothed out by the upscaler. But in their artworks they post on Twitter, the swirly texture brush is clearly visible. Another piece where it's very visible, another piece where it's visible, another piece where it's visible. Here is another piece where it's visible. Anyways, I don't need to keep beating a dead horse. So I personally find that hard to believe, again, because other elements of their piece just doesn't quite add up that aren't a rescaler thing. Like with this piece here, we have this character with two eyelids on one eye and one eyelid on the other. Even in the upscaled piece, there's still two eyelids on one eye and one eyelid on the other eye. Again, there are people with double eyelids only on one eye. It's not really common for artists to draw that in their pieces. But Mashiro adds, I will not be responding to any more hate to avoid further conflict. Comments are temporarily turned off. So I'm curious as to your thoughts. Do you believe Mashiro and that they're a legitimate artist that runs their artwork through a 16K image upscaling site that just kind of jumbles the work a little bit? Or do you think it's a sloppy excuse to try to cover up the fact that they were tracing some generated works or painting over works? Don't send hate to them, right? That's not what this is about. I would love to hear your thoughts with respect in the comment section down below. So anyways, if you like this video, I appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Don't forget to check me out on Etsy. I have digital art there for streamers and creators like emotes and overlays. I also have a coffee with free resources like a free sponsorship guide, and I stream on Twitch 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, Saturdays at 6 p.m. PST. I will also be traveling when this video is uploaded, and I have an alternate Instagram, catliente_IRL, where I will post travel content there if you want to check it out. So anyways, I hope to catch you all there or in another video. Bye bye.